very much for accepting to speak to us, Mr. Commissioner.
Good morning.
So let's start off, with you giving us a baseline as to where we are in terms of the planned activities in the build-up to the June polls.
I will start by giving with the confidence that we are well prepared and we are ready to conduct the elections come 24th June 2023.
Right.
Why am I saying this? Because we have concluded the voter registration. We have issued out the voter ID card. We are currently doing training of our staff. We have concluded most of the procurement requirements. We are going to start recruitment of the staff for the field work. So basically where we are, we've done also the nomination process of the political parties, presidential candidates, parliamentary and local council, for local council positions. So basically, I'm confident that we are on course in terms of our timeline and preparedness for the elections.
Right. So with that said, let's look at some of the emerging issues. There are concerns. You just mentioned that voters' ID have been distributed. And there are concerns, especially from the main opposition party, who are calling for the withdrawal of the cards and asking the Commission to issue fresh ones. What does the Commission make of that call?
The call to us is quite unreasonable and impracticable. We have less than 35 days to election, about 35 or 40 days, less than 40 days to the elections. For a political party, serious political party, to be asking for us to go back and reprint voter ID card for 3,700,000 and something for elections in June 24th, or 2024, 24 June 2023, it's telling us that we don't conduct election on that day. So to us, it's impracticable. As far as we are concerned as a commission, the ID card we printed, which we have issued to about 88% of those who register, meets the standard for us to use this card for the purposes of the voting. Why am I saying this? The ID card has several features. Photos is just one of these quality checks. We have about 5 securitized measures input into that card, which make it very difficult for anybody to play around with or to photocopy. And therefore, we note the concern about the photo, the color, the nature of the quality of the photos. And basically the reason for this, it's emanated when we were doing the voter registration, where we had to input the data of about 5 million people in the computers. And the original data we receive, it has something like 140% in terms of the pixel. For us to use that, it was going to take, for process each one person, would take something like 10 minutes to upload and then retract the information. So we took a decision to compress the quality of the photo. That led to the photo quality on the ID card to be, the compressed version is what we sent to the vendor to produce the ID card. Actually, that's what happened. But then, when we are now doing, we are doing the voter register, we are going to use the original photos that we have taken from the NCRA and those that we took from the field. And therefore, even if your photo, you have the photoless ID card, your photo will be displayed on the voter register and you will be recognized very easily. We have even taken decision to reduce the number of voters on the page. In the last election, we had something like 20 per page, but for the purposes of clearly identify and easily identify people, we have taken decision to reduce it to 15. So we have a bigger photo, we have the bigger details of the voters. So it will make it easier. And therefore, with or without voters' ID card, as long as you register, we have your detail on our voter register, you'll be allowed to vote.
There are concerns, and you've just mentioned that you want to restore confidence, and also you're in the process of recruiting field staff. And let's go back to even when you were appointed. There were calls, there were concerns that, oh, the Chief Electoral Commissioner belongs to the ruling Slpp. So what's the process of recruitment for the field staff, the polling agents, and what level of objectivity and confidence would you want to give to Sierra Leoneans about the entire process?
Let me start with the commission itself, including commissioners and staff.
Right.
I inherited the commission. The entire staff I inherited, about 90% are still there. Those who have left are those who have retired. I only dismiss those who have worked against the interest or against the staff code of. Did not remove anybody. In fact, I expanded the commission to allow those who have been in the commission for years to grow, give them directorate position, managerial position. So we have not dismissed anybody. And let me tell you, the recruitment of the commission has always based on merit through examination, extensive interview. And therefore I inherited a staff who were recruited 15, 20 years back by people who had been there to conduct election, two or three elections. So the idea of saying the commission is regionally biased towards the Southeast is not correct. Even if that is the situation, nobody is responsible because they were recruited using the merit-based procedure. Then secondly, coming to the composition of the commission, the commissioners. We have 6 commissioners, including myself. I am from Kenema. I speak Mende. My background is Madingo, Konyaka, Mende. You have commissioner from the East, who is a Kisi. You have commissioner from the West, who is a Limba. In fact, her name is Kamara, but probably because her Marita name is Motsue, people associate her with Southern region.
Right.
Then you have Baka Kuruma, who is a Timni. He speaks Timni fluently from Bombali. And then you have Kanu, a Timni from Poloko. So you have 2 Timni, 1 Limba, 1 Mende, or 2 Mende, 1 Kisi. So that's the composition of the commission. But we understand some of these issues. And so we try to focus on the things that we are doing. We know whatever politician or social media are saying about the composition in terms of the regionally imbalance, it's not true.
And what about members of the commission were you the commissioners belonging to a political party?
For me in particular, all my work institutions, there's a strict rule. There has always been a strict rule that I should not belong to a political party. I worked for the Anti-Corruption Commission for about 10 years before I left. I went to the African Development Bank, international organization, which clearly prohibits you from participating in political activities. Similarly, the other commissioners like Bakar, Alpha, they have been in the commission for over 15 years, which will not permit them to belong to a political party. Commissioner Mosue from the West, she was working for Political Party Regulation Commission, and also her job will not permit her to belong to a political party. Similarly, with the Commissioner for Eastern Region, Mrs. Moijwe, who had worked for NACID for over how many years, and she's retired. So none of us are is a member of any political parties, because our institution, we had worked for front against those conditions.
Let's talk about the reintroduction of the district block proportional representation system. And first, there were concerns as to how independent members candidates who are vying to be members of parliament would be included. And the threshold of over 11%. So let's talk about the provision or inclusion of those who are independent candidates into the process.
Yeah, when we finally got the directive to use the proportional representation, before this election, before this system, there is no provision that debar in the constitution that debar independent candidates to contest for any position except for presidential, and therefore they have been independent candidates in parliament. Right. So we realized that because of the introduction of the PR system, we can also not disqualify them because of the requirement for political parties to nominate candidates for MPs or council elect positions. So therefore, we made the regulation that provided for independent candidates to contest under similar circumstances as first past the post or constituency-based elections. But the question, when you use proportional representation, you have to have conditions under which you allocate seats to parliament. In 2002, when we used the proportional district block system, we had a percentage of 12% 12% for any political party to get a seat. How did they arrive at that figure? The decision, the regulation at the time, the parliament passed that every district should have 8 seats. So what they did, 8 seats divided by 100%, that's across the country, divided by 8, it gives 12%. So that's how they calculated this percentage. But in these circumstances, for this PL system, and at the time there was no census, so instead of them determining the population per district, they just give flat figures for each political district, and then we had about 12 districts. So for these purposes of this one, we now have population census, the midterm census, and the census that was conducted in 2017. So we use that to determine the population quota per district, or for a constituency to determine the number of seats per district. So we arrive at 135, which the parliament recommended us to use for the next parliament.
The two censuses
censuses, yeah. We combine the two censuses and determine the population quota. But while we did that, in 2017 census, the opposition then, the party now in governance, are kicked against the census. There are a lot of complaints. Similarly, for the midterm census, the current opposition, in fact, boycotted the participation. So we thought, as a commission, to be fair, we can take the two figures, combine and find the average. So that's what we did to determine the number of seats per district. And when we did that, we were able to at least give additional seats to those who are going to be affected as a result of the midterm census. So now we have determined the number of seats in parliament, which is 135 seats. So what we did, we have 16 political districts. What we did, like they did in 2002, we divided the 16 political districts by 135. And that gives us the percentage of 0.1185. And then in percentage, 0.11 in percentage term, that gave the 11.9. But I understand the question of for independence, how that is difficult for independence to achieve.
So the decision now, the formula is an independent candidate, for example, in the Western Urban, must be able to secure 11.9% to have a seat in parliament.
Yes.
But what about, many have argued that the law only makes provision for party list system. So how are independent candidates included? Yeah,
the law, that's why when I was introducing the subjects here, I indicated that even under the constituency-based election, there is no provision that's mentioned independent candidates.
Specifically.
So basically, the reference for you to go to parliament, there's a basic qualification. You are 18 years above, or 20 years above, you read and write, you understand? So therefore, there is no provision that says whether you are independent or not in the Constitution that says you cannot. So we use the same provision under the Constitution, which have been used over the period, to give opportunities for independent candidates to come and participate in the process.
So as we talk about inclusion, another fundamental area that is very sensitive, women's inclusion. We've seen where the Public Elections Act, the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act, all supporting at least 30% minimum quota of representation. And with the nomination process, are we certain that we're going to get at least 30%? Did political parties comply?
You see, I think it was very deliberate when Parliament said in the regulation that if in the act, if political parties in submitting their list fail to comply with the requirements of every 3 candidates, there should be female candidates, we cannot accept the nomination or the list. So, having done the nomination, we've gone through the nomination. What we have noticed, especially for the local council, some political parties try to be smart in the sense they will indicate a female, they will nominate a male candidate, but then the provision we had made, every candidate, we have given them a reference number. For male candidate 1, and then for female 2. So if you nominate 2 candidates with 1, if you nominate 2 candidates with reference with code number 1, you will not proceed. If you nominate another one, you will not be able to proceed to the next stage. So what they were doing, instead of referencing the female candidates, as male candidates as male candidates. They were referencing male candidates as female candidates. So we have seen that also as part of the ploy to bypass. So what we have done, we have collected the statistics of those involved in this practice. We are going to write to them to correct with a limited time. Failure to do that, we will reject the entire list for that district.
Do we have a percentage of that?
I cannot remember the figure, but the operation have just done the analysis.
Right.
So once I get there, we will get
this for all political parties?
Not all political parties, some political parties.
All right. Well, continue to stay with us. Let's quickly take this break, and we'll Versailles in the Site 2023 series coming to you today. We're talking to the nation's Chief Electoral Commissioner, Mohammed Kenewi Kone. And just before we took that break, we were talking about how political parties were trying to outsmart the system to bypass and ensure that they keep the male dominance in the political landscape. Now, those you've been able to identify that, well, potential fraud, potential electoral fraud, are there consequences if they fail to make the necessary correction that should guarantee the implementation of the 30% minimum law? Yeah,
the law gives us the power to reject the nomination which failed to meet this requirement of 1 to 2 in every 3 candidates. So once we conclude this analysis, we are going to write to them to correct within 48 or not more than 48 hours. Failure to doing that, because we have to print the ballot papers. And we cannot print the ballot paper if we don't have all of this sorted out. So we'll give them time to regularize the situation. Failure to doing that, we will not accept their list for the entire position, whether it's a district or whatever it is affected. But you see, this is how the politicians, they will always shout, we want free and fair election. Right. But they are the one who perpetrates most of these things. Like even the ID card, I will tell you for sure, some politicians, very prominent politicians, have approached some of our staff, asking them to give them this ID card. But then they go in the background and say they don't recognize the card. If you don't recognize, why are you using it? They use the card to do nominations. They use the card to move around to go and vote, but then they are saying they have disapproved the card.
I'm aware of a prominent female politician, for example, that approached the commission. But with all of these, how much of an engagement are you having with these political parties so they know their boundaries and just to have a very transparent and credible process?
Every 2 weeks, we have meetings with political parties. And my doors are always open to them for us to discuss issues. The issues raised by the All People's Congress in their press statement, these are issues we have discussed over and over. We have clarified the issue about the 250 voter registration, the duplicated voter register we took out from the register, the underage voting, why we are controlling the underage voter registration. All of these have been discussed with them. So for them to come back and say, as if we have not had any discussions with them. But I will understand, this is the time for politics, and politicians will use any means either to get sympathy or to get support. So basically, we are not much concerned. What we are concerned with is for us to remain within the boundaries of the law, our mandates and regulations to conduct free and fair elections. So we have extensive engagement with political parties. In fact, presently, what we are now doing, we are having at district level political party liaison committee meetings where our staff will engage the local leaders of these political parties. Because that's one thing we realize. We'll meet at the headquarters at the national PPLC meeting. We explain all of this to the leadership. But then when they go somewhere, when they go out, they are not relaying this information to their membership. So these are some of the problems we are faced with the political party. But we'll continue the engagement until we have free and fair and credible elections.
I wanted to take you straight off to polling day. But just before then, there is this concern about not giving out disaggregated data to the political parties. What is holding that, and what are the criteria for the issuance of these disaggregated data to the political parties?
Immediately we concluded the field data capture before we released the provisional results. The political parties, civil society organization approach us to give them the data. So we cannot give you the data we have just captured And then we come back to you, we say, no, the data we're giving you was incorrect. So we said, no, we are not going to give you the data. We concluded the exhibition, the provisional list, the exhibition, and then the final data. And then they came back and said, can you give us the final figure? We said, no, we are not going to give you. Because during the exhibition, we realized that there were some people who have registered in some places. Their registration detail went to another locations. So we said we can only give you after we've done the issuance of the ID card. We have sanitized, we have consolidated any mismatch. Like, for example, even when we are issuing the ID card, there were people whose registration detail fell somewhere else other than where they registered. So that has been our consistent message today. We cannot give you this voter register until we have sanitized, we have consolidated every information therein. And as a practice over the years, the Commission has always been giving political parties the entire voter register, which they have been using to give out to their agents. So that's basically the reason we have not given. But we have made a promise. The finalization of the consolidation is going to happen this weekend. And by next week, we'll start printing. Once we start printing, we are going to provide the details of disaggregated data on our website. It's not only for one political party, so that other political parties can have access to it. And at the end of the day, we'll give them the soft copy of the entire voter register for them to print out and utilize during the polling day.
Let's go to polling day itself. We have days to June 24th already. And we're in the rains. Well, we are lucky it's not raining now, but we're in the rain. So what are the plans of the Commission to ensure that, even if it's paused on that day, people would go out and vote, that the centers would still be open?
The preparation we have made arrangements. We started with, once we fixed the election dates, when we were doing the capture of centers, we are taking note of the possibility of raining on the 24th of June. So what we did, we tried to identify schools, court barriers in the communities as a primary voter registration center and the polling day centers. Those areas that we don't have schools, those areas that schools are far away, we have identified open spaces and some private properties. In addition to that, we're also going to construct booths with tarpaulins that will be able to accommodate our staff. And the other measure we want to undertake is for us to talk to private dwelling houses wherever we have this open space, so that when people go to register to vote, they will at least, it will be a holding space for them to stay and then move to where the voting is taking place. So this is something we have tasked our work coordinators and other staff, other field staff, to start looking out how do we engage private owners of property that at least can serve as a holding venue for that. But we pray that, you know, there will be no rains on that day. We had conducted elections in 2007. We conducted elections in August, and we were lucky, and we hope again we'll be lucky on 24th of June. There will be no rain.
Right. Let's get to the environment. How conducive would the environment be for people, say persons with disabilities, the aged? You know, on a normal day, the world is frowning at having facilities without ramp to ease the accessibility of persons with disability. So these centers that you've identified for voting, did you take into consideration persons with disabilities and the aged?
Yes, when we were doing the identification of centers, polling centers, they were part of the parameters. We have now data on all the polling centers which have difficulties for disabled. As a matter of fact, these are recommendations that came after the 2018 election. As a reason, we have even established the inclusion department. So we are in discussion, part of the UNDP funding, to construct ramps in some of the areas that will be very difficult for disabled. So we now have the statistics of areas that will need ramps or a little bit challenging for disabled or aged people. And we also, part of our regulation is to ensure that on the polling day, we give preference or priority to disabled or the aged, so that they can process their voting and then they leave the location.
All right. Another crucial that area that is very critical to the credibility of elections has to do with data sharing. Now, I know CSOs, the media, we love the data. We love to portray what's the data on the screen, telling people that, oh, party A is leading, party B is coming close, and all of that. Now, are there considerations around how data sharing would have to be done in order to avoid chaos, so we do not predict a winner that at the end of the day it turned out that party or that person is not the winner? What are the considerations around data sharing?
The first consideration here for the media is to respect the fact that the Electoral Commission for Sierra Leone is the sole mandated institution to pronounce the results of any elections. So if we appreciate that, then we will be careful. How do we share information? We know we now live in a global world with social media. Access to information is much easier than previously. So our encouragement to them is to allow us to process the results and then come out with the final figure, final results that I can announce as the National Returning Officer. The other thing we want to do, we are going to be open in terms of the process. The media will be there. After the end of the poll, we count the results. The results are displayed. If media want to say this polling station, because it has the provisional,
right?
That's why we always encourage, when you want to talk about results, as long as not be announced by the National Returning Officer, they are provisional results. They are provisional results because it has to go through quality control, quality check as well. So we want to balance the need for openness and transparency as against raising the tension, which might impact the outcome of the results. Because if a credible media institution like AYV, bring out a news alert, breaking news, this candidate has won, eventually after our analysis, that's not the case. You've already created tension. You've already created situation that will cause, violence in the country.
If we go back to 2018, for example, the National Elections Watch predicted that there was going to be runoff based on the data the institution had at the time. But had it been there was not going to be a runoff, the situation that would have created would have been something chaotic. Now, what's the plan with these observers for them to understand their limit? Because like you mentioned, after elections, the polling staff would have to count and at the end of the day publish the provisional results. And from those publications, the media, CSOs, and everybody would want to show that, oh, I was there. In fact, this is the reality. And so based on this, I would say for sure, Party A is winning this election.
Yeah, part of our requirement for the observers is to ensure that they don't go beyond their limits, their authorities. And we're going to make that very clear to our local observers, to the media. If you want to be accredited, you have to take an undertaking that you cannot release any results that has not been clear by the Electoral Commission. Because as you rightly mentioned, these are the things that will trigger violence. If the politicians are claiming to have won the election, and then the third party in the management as an observer, then you give credence to whatever they are saying, then you are creating problem and pressure for the Electoral Commission. Because we cannot just come and announce results. It has to go through a lot of process. And these processes are being observed by the political parties. We cannot come and say, we cannot encourage, and we will not encourage any journalist or any observing organization for them to release results which are not the final results from the commission.
Just quickly, before we take a break, there is this emerging issue. Nomination candidates, we've seen letters of candidates pulling out of the race. In Komon-Tok, for example. Does that in any way affect the work of the commission, especially with the timelines?
What we will not encourage, once as I mentioned earlier, all this abnormally with this information we have received, some of the parties have communicated that to us. We are changing our, these candidates. We are taken out these candidates with this. They have pay. That's the basic requirement. You have to pay for all. As long as you have paid for the entire positions in that district, you have some limits on period to do changes. Just like the law permits even presidential candidates, if there are any issues that disqualify a presidential candidate, the commission can give them time to replace within 7 days to replace the candidate. So we still have that opportunity. But once we sign the contract with the printer of the ballot papers, that's the final. And by next week, we are coming out with gazetted based on whatever correction they are going to do with the local council. We are coming out with the gazetted names of those who have gone through the nomination from these political parties. And once that is done, we will not change any names on the list.
All right, continue to stay with us, Mr. Commissioner. Let's quickly take this break. We will be right back. A free series coming to you on AYV television, part of our elections coverage. We bring some of the leading lights within the electoral landscape that would shape the 2023 June 24th elections. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm with the country's Chief Electoral Commissioner, Mohammed Konewi Kone. Just before that break, you I asked a question about candidates pulling out of the race after nomination, and you mentioned there is a window. Yeah. So even if political parties want to make a change of their presidential candidates, they have 7 days to do so. But in a situation where you have, say, 7 days or 5 days to the polls, does that window allow for any change?
No, we don't have any limitation.
Right.
But if it has to do with the presidential candidates, there is a window to give a little bit of time by deferring the polling date, the election date, for them to arrange themselves. There's a window for that. But in terms of the requirements, once we sign off, all things being equal, we sign off, we cannot accept changes on the list.
Let's talk about the collaboration within the electoral landscape. You know, for a normal Sierra Leonean, when on election day there are incidents of violence, the blame goes to the Electoral Commission for whatever happens. So how much of a collaboration are we going to see between the Electoral Commission, the security sector, the media, the CSOs, and all key players, including political parties who are always said to be those who foment chaos around the centers?
It's one of my leadership approach since I assumed office is that I've always said in public gathering that the position of the chair, or the chair as we normally say in our local languages, a hot, I cannot bear the heat alone because there are so many players in the electoral activity, in the chain of electoral activities. And for us to achieve what we want, everybody needs to play their role in the chain of responsibilities. We have the security sector, we have the political party, civil society organization, the media. So what I've done to my best of ability is to share the responsibility and remind everybody of their own responsibility in the chain of the electoral process. On our part, we are responsible to prepare, provide, manage the logistics, create the environment, conducive environments for people to participate openly without hindrance. And the security sector, they are in charge of security to ensure that people are safe to participate in the process. So I've made that very clear to the military, to the police. And as a matter of fact, I'm a member of the security sector committee, and therefore we discuss security issues whenever we meet, especially at this point. This week, we have been touring the region. We were in Kenema, Bo, Poloko, Makeni, where we have been meeting, engaging with stakeholders. So we are in very good, positive working relationship with the security sector. In fact, we even requested the military to use some of their logistics in terms of deployment of materials to the election centers. So we have a very good working relationship with the security sector.
So let's talk about deployment of the elections materials. In 2018, some of the concerns were there were hard to reach areas, and so there were delays in getting materials in time to those centers, which to some point obstructed the time frame for for polling stations to open and get people to go and vote. Are there considerations, are there plans to ensure that those delays the Commission encountered in 2018 will be addressed in time going to June?
Yes, we have. When we were doing the center mapping, these are part of the information we collected. Each center, as we speak, we now know how many kilometers, how many hours it will take to get to these centers. We now know the means of transportation, so the easiest means of transportation to get to those centers. So previously, what they were doing, the Commission will focus on hiring of vehicles. And we all know in our territory, some of the territories are very difficult to reach, hard to reach areas. The only means you can get there either by trotting or by motorbikes. So with this information we have now, when we are doing the procurement for transportation, we are not only going to focus on vehicles, we are going to focus on vehicles, motorbikes, boat hiring, and all of this, so that we make it easier for our staff to move and the logistics to be deployed. In addition to that, we have also worked out our deployment plan. We want to ensure that the materials are at the nearest point to the center at least 2 days before the election. So that's why we've even started receiving material, the non-sensitive materials. Once we get the non-sensitive material, the first step is to take them to the regional hub, from the regional hub to the district within certain period, and from the district to the community to the chiefdom, from the chiefdom to the ward and the centers and the rest. So that's what we're doing. And even in the hiring of vehicles or transportation, previously they will go national. One or two person will be given the contract. So we've taken the decision that this year we are going to do the hiring by district, and we cannot give a contract of more than 2 districts. So that have reduced the burden on one individual, and then will make it easier for them to pool the resources. So we are in terms of the planning, but as they normally say, the best plan sometimes will not survive the first shot. Right. But that notwithstanding, we have put alternative measures in place to ensure that we distribute materials way ahead of time.
There are hotspots for violence during elections. I have an experience when I covered the midterms in the US, and there were areas known as blue states, red states, and so there were extra cautions being in place for any potential threats to disrupt or obstruct the entire electoral process. Do we have any similar situation in Sierra Leone already? We know regionally the country is divided along political lines. So are we taking into consideration all of those things just to have a very peaceful, fair, credible and transparent election?
Yeah, the security sector has done the election risk threat assessment. They have produced a report. They have identified hotspot areas, and I'm sure it's part of their planning in the terms of deployment where the focus have to be. They have shared with us some of the information that they have gathered. So in terms of deployment also, we have taken into consideration all of this. In addition, we also have the election risk management tools, which we have identified certain areas that's not only for security, but even in the deployment of staff. So we are in, as I mentioned, there's a strong collaboration with the security sector. We're working together.
We talked about the nomination of presidential candidates. Have you been notified of any petitions so far since you temporarily or provisionally confirmed all those who went through the process?
We have not received any objection or petition against any candidates. And as a matter of fact, for presidential, it ended the 17th, that was yesterday. So we are now preparing to gazette the final list of candidates.
Confirmed candidates.
Confirmed candidates.
So no objection would...
We have not received any objection.
All right. So, Mr. Commissioner, are there final thoughts on the assurance, like giving assurance to Sierra Leoneans, so how you hope to instill confidence, trust in the people as we head to the June 24th polls?
As we head to the June 24th poll, at least when I came in, there were a lot of perception. When I assumed office in 2022, there were a lot of perception from the opposition, from even some civil society organization about my experience to manage the Electoral Commission. But over the 2.5 years, I think I have proven that I'm up to the task. We conducted several by-elections during my tenure, and to the extent in Parliament when they were debating, all political parties in Parliament stood up and commended the Electoral Commission for a very good job. It is the same commission that has conducted elections in the past 20 years. Many of the staff are still there, and the same staff, the same commission. The only difference this time around, it is driven by Sierra Leoneans. And so far, we have lived to that expectation. And we promise Sierra Leoneans that we will conduct free and fair elections, and credible results will be released that will make Sierra Leoneans to be proud of themselves, that we have maintained the democracy which we have so far built over the period.
As you talk about the fact that this time around, the entire process is being led by Sierra Leone and Sierra Leoneans, from funding to everything. So now, the question is, how tough is the Chief Electoral Commissioner, the National Returning Officer, when the heat would be up during and after the June polls to get this nation in a very stable path?
The Chief Electoral Commissioner is a calm character, and over the period I've demonstrated that I'm not easily moved. I manage my pressure. I've made it very clear to everybody that as long as what we are doing is within the law, that's what we do. We don't succumb to any pressure from any political party or any individual. We are being guided by procedures, by law. That's why we normally don't respond to so many social media issues. So, and when I assume last year at this time, many people were saying, at this time in 2023, the country will be so much tense and everything. But we very much calm. You meet, commissioners, our normal interactions, we are very much casual, as if nothing is happening around. The reason is because we are united as a commission. We are united. There is no division among us. Whatever we are doing, I'm not taking the position because I'm the chief or I'm the CEO. I will direct. We consult, we discuss, and then we take common positions. That's why we are very much comfortable. And we give the confidence to Sierra Leone that so far we have managed the pressure, and we manage it on the 24th of June. No matter whatever breeze, whatever situation, we promise that Sierra Leone will come out of this election in one piece.
Just before I let you go, Mr. Commissioner, like every other institution, when you hire people, there are rules, there are codes to go by. But deliberately, there are people that would flout, that would breach and just do things on their own. And looking at how sensitive the commission is at this point, when staff would be recruited as field agents, pulling, those who would definitely, deliberately go against the commission's principles and codes, would the commission come out clearly in putting out a statement that, like for example, we've had staff at AYV who've always gone against the codes, the principles, but we've always come out, apologized, and then at the end of the day dismiss or take punitive actions against those staff. Is the commission prepared to take responsibility for the actions of those people that many Sierra Leoneans would want to take unscrupulous to disrupt the entire process?
Oh yes, in fact, one of the initiatives I brought in the commission is the establishment of the ethics unit within the commission that report directly to me, not only on hard work staff, but even the permanent staff. We have dismissed some staff within the commission, so let alone hard work staff. Even after the voter registration, we have dismissed a lot of staff. We refuse to pay them their allowances they were due because of some conduct which are against the code of conduct. So as a commission, we are very much prepared, and we have demonstrated that we are strict on the conduct of our staff. Whenever somebody does something that is against the code of conduct, if it comes to our attention, immediate action will be taken. Because for the elections, we are thinking of recruiting about 90,000 people. And imagine recruiting 90,000 people from different life, of different backgrounds. to be managed, to be, to manage our electoral process is a huge task. And we cannot vouch for many of them because by their conduct or background. However, their code of conduct, which they have to sign up to, and if anyone goes against that, we'll not only dismiss you, we'll take you, we go through the legal procedure. The police will come in.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner.
Always.